This is Lesson 3 on page 41, Automating Workbook Functionality. Working with large workbooks presents a number of challenges. Entering large amounts of data can be time-consuming and prone to errors. You may also find yourself spending a lot of time and effort performing the same few tasks over and over again. And the more people who work in the same document, the more these types of issues become magnified. In short, as you develop ever larger and more complex workbooks, you want to find ways to automate any number of tasks to save time, reduce errors, and generally make using your workbooks easier. The good news is that Microsoft Office Excel includes a variety of features that enable you to do just that. From ensuring that only the correct data or type of data can be entered into your worksheets, to performing repetitive tasks so you don't have to, Excel's automation features can save you valuable time and keep your data intact. In this lesson, you will automate workbook functionality. You will apply data validation, search for invalid data and formulas with errors, and work with macros. So topic A on page 76 is applying data validation. The single most important aspect of data analysis is having accurate data to analyze. Given the large number of people who may use your workbooks, it's essential that you be able to trust the data they enter. Even just a few bad entries can have a chain reaction-like effect on formulas and tables throughout large workbooks. But what can you do, short of standing over someone's shoulder as he or she enters data, to ensure your data is accurate? This seems a near impossible task to achieve. Fortunately, Excel provides you with a robust and flexible way to help ensure only valid data is entered into your worksheets, data validation. Understanding precisely what Excel enables you to control and how to configure your worksheets to accept only correct entries will let you take control of your worksheets and be assured that you're avoiding major data errors that could take hours to locate and resolve. So in Excel, you use data validation to restrict data entries in worksheet cells. So you can actually choose a format of the entry that you're prompting users to make, so it only falls within that format. So here I have some demographic information that we can fill in for a person, and maybe I'm having someone fill this in, and I'm restricting their first initial piece here to only 1 character in length. So to set data validation, we go up to the Data tab on the ribbon, and in the Data Tools command group, here I have my data validation command. And this opens up our dialog box. And in this dialog box, we have 3 tabs. We have our Settings tab, where we choose what data validation we want to apply, whether it's any value, whole number, decimal, list, choosing an option from a list, a date entry, time, and you can specify the text length. Then we have our Input Message tab, which brings up a little screen tip as when you have the cell selected that prompts the user on what exactly you want them to enter. And then you have an error alert, which will stop the user from entering invalid data. It will warn them that they're entering invalid data, or it will just let them know, what they're entering does not meet the criteria, but it still lets them continue. So we'll take a look at a few examples here for our different entries. So for our first initial, we would start on our Settings tab, and maybe for this I only wanted to obviously be 1 character in length. So in the Allow drop-down, I would choose my text length, and you can see my options change at the bottom here. My text length, you can have between, not between, equal to, not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So you have some comparison operators here. So I want it to be equal to, and then you have your length field. So I want 1 character in length for my first initial. Then I could move over to my Input Message tab, and here I would input a message to prompt the user on what to input into this particular cell. So when this is checked off, it's active. If I didn't want an input message, I just uncheck that and you can see it disables everything. So I will put an input message here and we'll just name this first initial. And our input message, please input your first initial only. So that will come up in a little screen tip pop-up window when you have the cell B1 selected. And then I could move over to my error alert. So if you want an error alert, you want this box checked off at the top, and then you want to choose the style. So the differences here for your 3 styles, you have stop, warning, and information. And your stop alert will restrict the user from entering any invalid data. The user has only 2 options, and that's to cancel or retry the entry. So we'll take a look at that one first. We'll use a stop warning here. And I will call this first initial error. And our error message, we'll do your entry includes too many characters. And I'll click OK from here. And now when I select cell B1, what pops up is that input message from the second tab there. And it says, please input your first initial only. Now, if I was to go and put more than my first initial and put my whole first name here, when I press enter, since this is a stop error, my error title comes up at the top, first initial error. Your entry includes too many characters. I have the option to retry or cancel. If I retry, it allows me to go back into that and retype. If I cancel, it will just clear out the cell and leave it empty. All right, so that is a text length option. You can see now when I put only my first initial in, it does accept that in there. All right, so let's take a look at our last name option. Go back into my data validation dialog box. I want to start on my settings tab. For my last name, I might want to do any value. That leaves no criteria there. That is the default for all cells in your worksheets. We could do our input message of last name. Please input your last name. Move over to my error alert. Since this is any value, you probably don't even need an error alert here since there's no criteria set to it. So I could uncheck this, leave it disabled, and click OK. You can see when I have B2 selected, gives me my input message, and I could go ahead and enter that. Any amount of characters will be accepted there. Any numerical entries, whole numbers, decimal points, negative numbers, whatever you want. And then we have our date of birth. Start on our settings tab. Here we might want to obviously have a date value. You could do dates between, not equal to, so on and so forth with your comparison operators. Now for your date, for your birthday, you might want to do less than or equal to today's date, because obviously you wouldn't want a date entry for a birth date to be sometime in the future because the person is not born yet. So less than or equal to today's date, which is March 25th, 2020. Move over to our input message. Here we have, we'll do date of birth. Please input your date of birth. Move over to our error alert, and we'll take a look at our warning message now, our warning error alert. And the warning error will allow users to enter invalid data, but it does first prompt them to decide whether or not they want to continue. So for our title, we'll do date of birth error. Your date of birth can not be in the future, something along the lines of that. And click OK. So it says, please input your date of birth for your input message. Now, if I did May 1st, 2020, I get my warning alert. Your date of birth cannot be in the future, and for warning alerts, it will ask if you want to continue. So it will actually still accept the invalid data. So if I click yes from here, it will still keep that there. Now if I entered a date in the past, my real birthday will put in, you can see that warning will not show up. So far, stop warning or stop errors will not allow you to continue with any invalid data. A warning alert will prompt you whether you want to continue or not with your invalid data. Okay, then we have our age. Go back to our data validation. For your age, you may want to have a whole number. And you can set your restrictions here. Maybe you're only accepting applications or something along those lines of people who are older than 18 or older. So you would want to do greater than or equal to, and you have your minimum number of 18. Your input message, we'll do age. Please input your age in years. And our error alert, we might want to do a stop error here. You must be 18 years of age or older to apply, for instance. And click OK from here. So now if I was to put 17 years old, gives me that stop warning where I can retry or cancel. If I put 18, you can see it accepts it. Anything older than 18, accepts it as well. 0, accepts it. Now I put a hold number there. If I put 18.5, it's not going to accept that either, because even though it's greater than 18, I did set a restriction on that it has to be a whole number. It will not accept decimals there. If I change that data validation to a decimal number greater than or equal to 18, and put 18.5, you can see it will accept that now. Okay. Then we have our street address. You may want to do any value for this as well. Go ahead and put your input message. If you don't want an input message, you can always check that off to disable it. It will not pop up when you have your cell selected. And our last error style we have is information here. Now, this one I have any value, so it's not actually going to even prompt for an error. Maybe we'd want to set a text length here. Let's see. We'll do less than, we'll do less than 5 characters. And I'll go back to my error alert. Your information, do your entry. Must be less than 5 characters long. And I'll click OK from here. Now your information will just have a box pop up signifying that your entry is not valid. If I did 10 Main Street and hit enter, that is more than 5 characters long. So it'll just give you a little information box. Your entry must be less than 5 characters long. But all you need to do here is click OK, and it still accepts that entry. So in essence, your stop error is the only one that will always prevent a user from entering invalid data. Okay, now the next one we'll take a look at is our list entry, and that's choosing an option from a drop-down. Now on my second, actually I did that for state. We'll skip over to state here. I have a state list here, and I have the list already set up. So let's say from my state option here, I wanted a drop-down arrow that had these 3, New York, Georgia, and New Jersey, as my options in my drop-down list. I could go to my data validation, start with my settings, and I'm going to choose the option of list here. And in my source, I want my cursor here. I can then navigate to my state list, select the range A1 through A3. I could set up my input message. We'll skip that for now. And we'll do a stop alert. We'll do state error. You must select an option from the drop-down menu and click OK. So you can see when I have that cell selected, I get that drop-down arrow here, and I get the options New York, Georgia, New Jersey, and I can choose that. Now, if I go ahead and try to type an option here, it does let me type it in, but since I have a stop error alert there, you must select an option from the drop-down menu, and I could retry or cancel that out. For the list option, you don't necessarily have to have your entries typed in to a worksheet anywhere. I could, for my city, I could go into data validation, select my settings tab, and my allow drop-down, select list, and I can just type my options into my source field here. So maybe I have brick as an option, and I just separate them with commas. Comma, Tom's River, comma, Jackson. Click OK from here, and you can see from my drop-down now I have those options. All right, so you don't have to necessarily have that list set up somewhere in your workbook. Your next video is Activity 3.1 on page 47.